All right, now to the NBA, where Rudy Gobert is definitely living where the money resides. After agreeing to a 5-year, $205 million extension with the Jazz, which is the most lucrative ever for an NBA center. Gobert, who's a 2-time Defensive Player of the Year winner and a 3-time All-NBA selection, averaged 15 points and 13.5 rebounds last season. But here's the deal. He was eligible for the full Supermax deal worth $228 million, but said he didn't request it because he wanted Utah to have more money for the rest of the roster, especially when it comes to keeping Donovan Mitchell in Salt Lake City. But even without that extra coin, Gobert's new deal is still the third richest in league history. The committee has spoken and the college football playoff field is set. The semi-matchups, plus we'll hear from who's in and who's left out. For the first time in 11 years, the Patriots will not be in the playoffs. How Tua and the Dolphins ended New England's streak. And a Super Bowl preview. Drew Brees returns to face Patrick Mahomes and the defending champs. SportsCenter right now.
If you guys didn't know this, Trevor Lawrence is pretty good.
Hell yeah! That's a hell of a feeling, man. I'm sorry, I'm not used to this, guys.
You know what? I feel you on that one. Happy Christmas week, America. I'm Michael Leach. Thanks for kicking it with us on this fresh edition of SportsCenter. We'll explain the postseason fallout from the day's slate of NFL games a bit later, but we start with college football's Final Four. A group of teams that did not change from last week's college football playoff rankings, but they did change order, setting up these matchups on New Year's Day. Number 1, Alabama against Notre Dame in the Rose Bowl game that's been relocated to Dallas. And number 2, Clemson against number 3, Ohio State in the Sugar Bowl. Here are the coaches who made it.
I broke down 2 or 3 times during the day, in the morning, a couple times before the game, and even after the game. Because, again, people are talking so much about what they've all been through, but you don't really know it until you walk in the shoes that these guys have walked through. These guys aren't paid. And so, nothing was guaranteed to them. They never gave up. They fought for something when they didn't have it. They've learned so many life lessons this season. This could be one of the greatest stories in the history of college football. This team just kept getting bad news, and I was usually the one that had to give it to them over and over again, whether it was somebody testing positive, a game being canceled, the season being canceled, and now we have good news.
This team has always been about, what can we do to support each other so that we can have the most successful season possible. And I think they started out with, something to prove, and so far they've managed that really well.
They'll never forget this. None of us will. They'll never forget this moment that they've lived through, and I'm just super proud of them. As I said last night, no team I've had deserved it more than this team. And we got a great opponent in Ohio State.
We felt like our body of work was outstanding, but when you don't play up to your level, you open it up to somebody else making decisions. I told our team, we control our own destiny going into this game. If you don't play up to your level, you don't control your destiny anymore. We had some really good wins, the number 1 team in the country. We played great football all year and just didn't play with the same edge against a very, very good Clemson team. And by the way, if you guys didn't know this, Trevor Lawrence is pretty good.
Yeah, understatement there, Brian Kelly. Alabama, by the way, opened up a heavy favorite against Notre Dame at Caesar Sportsbook by William Hill. Those teams have combined for 20 national titles in the AP poll era. Clemson more than a touchdown favorite against Ohio State. This is the 3rd time the teams have met in the semifinals of the playoff era. For more on the teams that made the Final Four and the ones that didn't, here's Reese Davis and the crew.
Top 4, not a lot of surprises. I think most everyone, Kirk, expected it to be the 4 teams that made it. Alabama plays Notre Dame, Clemson, and Ohio State.
Yeah, I think the big mystery was really what the committee would do with Ohio State. I mean, everybody on the outside world seemed to wonder if 6 games was going to potentially move them out with other teams that have played more games. At the end, when we talked with the folks at the committee, they made it sound like they discussed it, but it wasn't a big discussion. They all felt pretty unanimously that Ohio State and Notre Dame should be in there.
And the A&M Notre Dame comparison, I think, was a big one too. And they talked about resume. Obviously, Notre Dame beat North Carolina, which was a top 15 team, is a top 15 team. Their resume was a little bit stronger, more wins across the board, and obviously beat Clemson as well, and they got credit for that. So A&M obviously sitting outside looking in, but they were still fifth.
Yeah, and I agree with Notre Dame getting in at number 4 too, guys. And everyone's going to kind of, be enamored with the 24-point loss to Clemson in the ACC championship game. But you forget, they were a 10-0 team. They were a complete team. They were a dominant team. They have that resume. You can't discount or devalue the first win against Clemson because Trevor Lawrence wasn't there. Notre Dame still played great in that game, especially on defense, taking Travis Etienne away, and the win against UNC was huge. So from an eye test and a resume standpoint, I do think Notre Dame deserves to be in.
And once again, the committee got it right at the end of the day. And we go through this process every single year. Along the way, there might be some teams out of place that we don't agree with in the top 25, but they've done a really nice job of getting the top 4 teams correct, the best 4 teams in the country. And whether you agree with the order in which these teams are played in, what they've done a terrific job is making sure we got the 4 best, and they did it once again.
But, that's been the whole objective of the college football playoff era, because we didn't care for it when the formula just spit them out in the BCS days. And so you're not always going to agree. But you have 4 teams all worthy of competing for, and they'll try to win the national championship starting on New Year's Day.
All right, guys, thanks a lot. The other New Year's 6 bowl games can be seen on ESPN. Cotton Bowl rematch of the 2009 title game between Oklahoma and Florida. Cincinnati did not make the playoff, but will be in a New Year's 6 bowl for the first time. Oregon and Iowa State will meet in the Fiesta Bowl. And Texas A&M, also on the outside looking in for the playoff, gets a date with Mac Brown and the Tar Heels at the Orange Bowl. And while playing in one of these bowl games is cool, everyone had rather be a part of that Final Four.
Well, we were disappointed that we weren't in the top 4, but we understand, listen, that's all subjective and it's your opinion on things, and they had a process they went through, and it is where it is, and we're getting ready to go play a great Orange Bowl game, and hopefully a very good team in North Carolina. We deserve to be in the top 4. I still believe that, but that's my opinion on it, and I'm very biased to them, and other people have other opinions, and that's what makes the world go round. Hey, we move on from decisions that are made. You don't dwell on the past. You go to the future, and we have a very good chance in the Orange Bowl.
It's going to be tough, and in order for us to really have had an opportunity, we'd have had to have played, to me, and beaten one of those top 5 teams, and that's just a reality behind it. In a different year, we had Nebraska on the schedule this year. Those kinds of things didn't work out. Next year we have Notre Dame and Indiana, so it would obviously be some different opportunities if that was that year. But the reality is it's going to be difficult. Obviously, some things could have happened if we had played really, really, really well, and maybe in Ohio State or somebody had gotten beat, that I think that there would be much more discussion.
Again, so Notre Dame got the 4th spot, and that's where the debate really lied. Also, with Ohio State getting up to 3 with not as many games played. But both the Irish and Texas A&M had the advantage of playing a tougher schedule. Cincinnati won all of its games, though, including a conference championship game against a top 25 opponent. And by the way, in case you're wondering, the 24-point loss by the Irish yesterday, that's the largest by an eventual playoff team. Still ahead on SportsCenter, we go to college basketball, and you have to see the ending in the Big East matchup. Xavier Marquette,